We all want a better connection with our horses. We want to have a better relationship. We want to feel like we have a friendship with our horse and like they're happy to see us. It can be really frustrating when we start to have behavior problems or when it feels like we just don't get why our horse does some of the things that they do. But one of the first steps, I feel, to getting that better connection and that better relationship is to work to understand how the horse actually perceives the world and how the horse thinks through the training situations or the training exercises or even just the time that we spend with them. I'm Callie from CRK Training, and this is 7 Days to Understanding Your Horse. In this video series, what I want to do is just give you some basic information on how horses learn, how horses think, and how they perceive the world, and then how you can use that knowledge to be a better rider, a better horse owner, a better trainer. So let's get started and head up to the barn. We're going to start by thinking about how the horse perceives the world and a little bit how they think differently than us. So I'm going to be referencing this book. This is The Mind of the Horse by Michel Antoine LeBlanc, and I love this book. You can see that I reference it quite often. It's a little bit of a heavy read because it's very scientific and it's basically a review of a number of different research studies, but I've gained a lot of insights about what science knows about how horses actually perceive the world. So things like how do they see, how does their hearing or their sense of smell differ from us? And there's a lot of different myths that kind of go around in the horse world. So a really common one is that horses don't transfer things from one side of the brain or the other, or if they see it out of their right eye, they don't remember it if they see it later out of their left eye. And this book does a really good job of reviewing research and kind of clearing up a lot of those myths. And to start our discussion today of equine senses and perception, I wanted to just share a simple sentence that the author wrote that I really liked. And he's talking about how all kinds of different individuals, people, different animals, we all have different sensory organs and we sense things so differently. And he says that, in short, at the level of the sense organs, reality is not the same for everyone. So I just really like that because we have to remember when we're working with our horse that they perceive things sometimes so differently, and it can be tough for us to really put ourselves in their hooves, for example, and understand that. But we can just keep in mind that they are experiencing things differently and that, like he said, they can have kind of a different reality. I think it just gives us perhaps a little bit more patience and clarity for when they do things that seem to us to be very odd. One of the first senses that we're going to look at that differs between horse and human is vision. So as humans, our vision tends to be very clear in the center of our focus, and then the area around that is kind of blurred. And also because of the set of our eyes, we have a much smaller field of vision. For the horse, they have a long strip that is very clear, and then it's kind of blurred on the top and on the bottom of that strip. So the horse has more of a panoramic view because of the way that they have very large eyes and how they're set on their head. So the horse has a very wide range of vision around their body, and they're adapted this way because it gives them a better ability to be constantly scanning for dangers in their surroundings. But what this also does is it helps kind of explain when a horse sees something how they'll often move their head up and down in order to be able to bring whatever it is that they're checking out into clearer vision. And I love the little exercise that my friend Wendy Murdoch does to help people just get a bit of a better feel for how horses see. She takes a pair of glasses and just puts duct tape on the bottom and on the top strip of the glasses. So when you look through it, your view is kind of constricted on the bottom and on the top. So it just gives us a little bit more of an idea of how a horse is seeing with more of that strip of vision versus our spot of clear focus. The horse also sees color differently than us. So where we have a much wider range of bright colors, the horse's view or range of colors that they perceive is a lot smaller. And you can see that in the pictures illustrated in the book, The Mind of the Horse. So even just considering the vision, we can start to understand how our perception of reality as humans and the horse's perception of the reality of, say, a blowing plastic bag can actually be quite different. Of course, the senses of smell and of hearing are also a lot more sensitive in horses as well. So when we take into account the extra sensitivity of their hearing, the way that they can rotate their ears, the way that they can detect scents from much farther away, and also the fact that they have that more panoramic field of vision, we can start to understand how the horse is adapted to be a scanning animal. So they're constantly kind of scanning their environment for predators or for danger, where we as humans are more adapted to focus. So historically, we have been predators, so we have that ability to be able to focus in on a small area, to be able to hold that focus and actually more kind of tune out some of the extrasensory things. Horses also learn differently than we do. So while we can conceptualize things, we can think about things, we can make generalizations, and we can categorize things, the horse learns more through trial and error. So if we think about example of a gate latch, if we have a number of different latches, a person can understand the ideas of gravity, understand the mechanics of how a latch functions, and even if we give him a bunch of different latches to open, a person will be able to figure out those different latches pretty quickly because they understand the concept of how a gate latch works. Where a horse isn't going to make those bigger ideas of gravity and how latches work. Instead, the horse is going to learn through trial and error. So we can also teach a horse to open a latch, but they're going to have to try it a number of different times and kind of figure out what movements actually work to open each individual latch instead of making those generalizations. So we'll talk a little bit more about how learning happens for the horse in a later video in this series. But next, I want to cover some of the big factors that actually influence behavior. The first thing that's going to influence a horse's behavior is their genetics. So some breeds are known to have calmer, quieter temperaments, and other horses, Arabians and thoroughbreds, are known to be more sensitive and more reactive. And while we can influence a horse's temperament to a point, and we can influence how they behave through training, I believe that horses do still genetically have a predisposition for either being more or less reactive, and they also kind of have a personality that is a little bit innate as well. So experiences are things that have happened in that horse's life that are going to influence how they behave. So for example, if a horse has had really good early training going onto a trailer, he's probably going to have a lot better associations, and in the future he's going to behave a lot calmer around trailers and loading than if his first experience was really stressful and really traumatic. Maybe he went on, he pulled back, he got loose, he banged his head, something bad happened, and he's now going to have a stressful experience that he's going to associate with that trailer. The other thing that affects behavior or influences behavior is environment. So environment can be anything from the amount of distractions that are present. So we all know the classic windy day. Our horses sometimes act completely different when the temperature drops and it's windy out than on a really nice, warm, still day. So that's an example of environment. Also, we are part of the horse's environment. So if we are calm and in a good state of mind, a lot of times that will influence a horse's behavior a lot differently than if maybe we're upset or we're frustrated or we are acting more anxiously around the horse. So environment is kind of everything that is around the horse in that moment. It can be weather, it can be barking dogs, it can be other horses, it can be us. And then state is the physical and also the mental state that the horse is in. So physical would be how comfortable is the horse? Do they have pain somewhere? Are they maybe a little bit malnourished, so they're acting more sluggish and they just don't feel good, as opposed to a horse that's very fit and healthy? And then mental state is Is the horse frustrated? Are they fearful? Are they anxious? Are they calm? So of course, how the horse feels both physically and then also mentally is going to influence behavior. And all these things tend to be pretty connected, especially these lower ones. And we'll talk about them a little bit more coming up. So in closing, what I want you to take from this video is first to accept your horse for who they are. And also recognize that we see the world a lot differently than our horse does. And our horse has had a number of things that are innate in them or that have happened to them or maybe are going on around them that you didn't notice before that are affecting their behavior. So in the next video, we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about the last two influencers that I mentioned, environment and the horse's state. I'll see you in the next video.